Smoke rose from the last of the wood. The Easterner, Sema, had difficulty sleeping throughout the night and kept the fire fed to help ease his restlessness. He rubbed his calloused hands together over the flames after dropping another batch of small sticks into the yellow-orange light. He stared into it, unblinking despite his heavy eyes. As if the air flinched, the smoke punched upward and smothered his face as the frigid coastal wind swept through, waking the others. Kellen rose from his place beside the fire and walked over to the cliff's edge. After a moment, taking in the vast horizon, he turned to see if anyone else was rising. Of them all, Sema was already equipped and fully dressed, wearing his same color-patterned tunic. Kellen walked over. "We should be going now," he said to the Easterner. There was not much to pack, as the men had stored away most of their items before falling asleep, keeping only what was needed for a night's comfort. Some had kept a trusted weapon gripped tightly in hand. King Orador assured them that there was no threat before the archipelago, other than whatever nature might usually bring. Yet even these men of repute could not rest completely at ease with the violent crashing of waves against the cliffside. Henrith stepped forward along the cliff a little away from Kellen. He squinted toward the end of the first isle with a suspicious gaze. Though it was the peninsula's end from where they looked, it was understood as the archipelago's beginning. The neck crossing was as slender as Henrith's, relative to his body. Despite being the thinnest of the men, however, he was the most nimble and agile. Henrith's curved dagger, sheathed now, was the same one that he tore from a northern raider chief, slaying the invader with his own metal. "Just a bit of a hike," Olin said, securing his broadsword across his waist. 3 days and some. Nauman chuckled, securing an axe in his belt. His waist was thin, but his shoulders were twice as wide. "Aye, just a bit, if only it was distance," he said. "Fortunately, King Orador prayed for us," Henrith replied. "Yet beyond this point are the Bezib's Isles. The spirit calls the archipelago home, and its pet swims through it." "It sounds as though you have uncertainty," said Olin. "They will contest, the two spirits, and we will nevertheless see and hear the truth." Henrith responded, "Truth?" "Yes," said Nauman. "The king said knowledge." Nauman shook his head. "Knowledge, truth, knowledge, all the same, Henrith. Whichever, we will begin each day less ignorant." "That was his warning as well," Sema said, low but within earshot of all. He came to stand on the end of the line of men, his feet near touching the edge of the cliff. The trees behind shielded the rising sun for the moment, keeping them in a subdued shadow. Sema's foreign accent brought an ominous air to his speaking. "The new has gone, but Henrith is right. These are still the Bezib's Isles." "You are an Easterner," scoffed Lennis, gripping the giant claymore that only his towering build could wield like a broadsword. He had an entire head over Olin, the second tallest. "What do you know about our king or our traditions?" "Only what he spoke. I do not profess to know your land or ways, much less this western sea. I am only here because your king asked me." "Same is not just skilled but intelligent, so mind yourself," said Fosk, a chiseled mass of a man, though he would be the shortest if not for the Easterner. He turned to Lennis. "I was with him against the Taven when our kingdoms allied. He saved my life in combat, and he was green at the time. But more importantly, King Orador saved his." A strong wind came at their backs. Startled, every man except Fosk gripped whichever weapon was closest in reach. The strength of it grew, shoving aside the trees of the forest and sweeping down into the sea as if with the intent to make the waves curl backwards. Henrith jolted his head back and forth. "The king said the Bezib had no influence until we crossed." "Do not fret," said Fosk. "That's the new. We are delaying, it seems. The enemy's spirit would not try to drive us forward as the wind is now. Ours wants the princess rescued just as much as her father." "Let's delay no longer then," Kellen said, turning to be the first to break. At first introduction, most of the others assumed he was barely a grown man. Youth kept to his face, and this hid some of his years. It was an advantage he always had in hand-to-hand combat, any rival thinking he was up against a mere boy. Often they had no chance to mock before seeing the first blood shed was their own. Fosk reached and grabbed Kellen's chest. "One moment," he said. Kellen quickly heeded the request. Not only was Fosk the most seasoned warrior and eldest, but King Orador named him leader of the task. No one personally knew Fosk, but he was the king's most reliable soldier. He was at every battle in their memories, yet none would see him before or after their time on the field. We must not be surprised at what we see or hear on these isles ahead. The new has gone before us and will ensure we come to knowledge. But be sure, the Bezeb will try and confuse us with it, anything to keep us from saving the princess. Fosk looked to the men on his left. Olin, how many tellings? 3. 1 for each isle until the last where the princess is kept. Fosk turned to Akellen. When will they come? Each night. And what more, Sema? He said to him at the end of the line. With 3 tellings, the Easterner had rehearsed the king's task several times over. No traveling more than 1 isle a day. Lest knowledge come too quickly, said Olin, repeating the king. Which I still don't quite understand, said Henrith. We'll heed the instruction, Foss said directly, and men, whatever you hear or see, keep it to yourselves until we receive the princess. Henrith replied, The king never said we must. Sacrifice to hear, sacrifice to be heard. Sema echoed the king's words. Aye, and that seems reason enough to keep all to oneself, said Naaman. We can wait a few days. Yes, much to bear, so set your minds right. Fosk breathed out heavily. What did King Ordor repeat most? Remain straight, keep forward, and you will not fail. You rebuke us? Said Henrith. We are only discussing the king's words, not all of them equally, regardless of any telling to come. Consider most that we have assurance with or without what comes at night. Suffering lends to strength, said Henrith. Isn't that right, Lennis? You're only as strong as the number of times you've overcome defeat. Sacrifice yields, let's not forget. Foss shook his head. Might you then sacrifice to not know? The sun peeked over the top of the forest behind. The plain of the first isle did not make room for a shadow. The land rose past the neck passage from where the men stood, but the empty isle fields would hardly see a tree with the climb. Fosk, said Naaman, your judgment is always trustworthy, but I do have a lingering curiosity. Did the king share anything else of these tellings? If there's perhaps a clearer, defined disadvantage in sharing them before receiving the princess, may we know? Fosk peered forward, glancing between the great sea and the first isle of the archipelago. From the sky, it looked like an attempt at a stripe through the ocean. The 3 different breaks, however, interrupted the streak, allowing the waters and the Leviathan to weave through like a needle to sew. It's a fair question, said Fosk, one I hope I did not have to address, to tell you truly. Henrith replied confused. There's something else the king spoke to you? If nobody asked, I would not say it because, as I just said, it should not matter. Remain straight, keep forward, and you will not fail. But to keep you all at ease, I will tell you, and I promise now, there is nothing else that King Ordor spoke to me. Olin said, should we want to know? That is the right question to ask, said Sema. Naaman spoke. Fosk, I understand you feel the burden as you lead, and there's no question you are an honorable man, the most. However, if the king did not prohibit you from sharing your wisdom, I think we, men who are about to venture through the Bezeb's Isles together, will find ourselves going forth in more assurance with knowing the same as you. Fosk kept stern, considering. Henrith broke the silence. Why would the king tell you something and not us? Olin replied, if there is reason, it is a fair one. There is likely reason, said Naaman, but the confusion that is coming to us now might be reason alone to share. Perhaps that is why he entrusted the reserve command with you, to give you the opportunity to lead us with it. Enough, Fosk said. It's not a command, and King Ordor never suggested anything of the sort, but I will answer. You all wonder if the tellings bestowed on us will be beneficial. It is a difficult question, and the answer might make it more troubling, but these are the king's words. Truth may free where knowledge has ensnared. He looked down the line to each man to make sure he had all eyes. But men, do not forget, sacrifice to hear and sacrifice to be heard. Akellen began to step away again. Shall we now go? Yes, said Fosk. There is now much ahead.